Hi, beauties. So today the guides want to talk about bringing in a little bit more empathy and compassion into your day-to-day life. And as a massive shame hoarder, like I get how debilitating it can be when things just pile up and stack up. And I know it can be hard to navigate the resentments, everything we wish we could have, would have, should have done, all of our actions that we're holding on to or things other people have done, and just get really embedded and stuck in this spiral of like shame and blame and guilt and resentment and just anger that's underneath it all, or even sadness and grief for what you feel you might have lost in your past. And here's the thing, they're saying things have happened previously to here and now. And if you're going through it right now, allow yourself to process that. But if you're really still stuck in the past, nothing's going to shift until you can kind of shift your perspective and understanding with that. And I mean, even for me, like I was probably in therapy every 2 weeks for a good solid 5 years, and I still wasn't getting this momentum coming forward. But what I wasn't willing to see, and I had structured my world around me to not have to see my trigger, is actually admit that I, have addictive issues and I am compulsive in any degree that it is possible, and not really wanting to see the depths and the levels, the shame and the trauma that I was holding on to. So I understand that it also takes a place for you to feel safe, to really kind of go into those areas that you've just been holding everything so tightly on, trying to protect those inner children, trying to live life here and now. And it can just feel like you're holding everything all the time. And it's just time to kind of put it down and just bring a little bit more compassion into your life. So I'm a big piece. It's like we can carry that story and that understanding, but it's the emotion and the trigger around it that we need to let go. I never condone anyone else's behavior of what they did, but I really allow myself to bring forgiveness in because it's for me. It sets me free. And frankly, it's like I don't care about them, but it took me a long time to get that place of just having that compassion and that acceptance of what's happened has happened, and I can't do anything about it anyways. And once again, like I stress this so importantly, it is not saying what happened to you was okay, but it's just allowing, that control hold that people will still often have, like, 10, 20, 30 years later over you, and just giving that permission for yourself to let go. And it just kind of will allow you to start processing and living your life for you rather than still under the cloud of them, if that makes sense. So, with this, a big piece I like to do, and I like to remind myself of when I'm in it, is that if I could have done things differently, I would have. And that doesn't help the situation sometimes, but it's just that permission to know when you get really caught in like all the scenarios of what else you could have done. It's like just giving yourself permission to silence that repeating brain that keeps coming in and just allowing it to settle down. And another piece with that is like for me, it serves you up until it doesn't. And we can carry so much shame. I've had a lot of guilt around this myself, of really, negative self-talk, criticism about behaviors that you've gone through or you've taken or you wish you could have done differently. But when I really look back now, I know they always say 2020, is that hindsight that gives us the ability to look at it. But like previously, it's like it served me more to be in my compulsion, to be in my addiction, to hold on to the pain, because I didn't actually have a safe space if it all fell apart where I could land. And so we need to really understand that by opening up these portals can feel like life and death for some people, because that is the fight or flight that we've been holding on to. And think about for how many years some of these traumas that we've been carrying can impact us. So if your adrenals are constantly high, you always feel like you're looking over your shoulder. It's like, think about how much of your life has spent in that fear of these things happening again or coming true. So it's like just that understanding can bring in a little bit of a shift of, perspective, a little bit more compassion to allow you to kind of start seeing it for what it is, and then get the proper help, because once we see it, it's really hard to unsee it. And so you need to find your space that you can kind of open up within and relax. And so for me, it's looked like different things over the years, and some things served me until they didn't. And I've often overstayed my welcome in certain areas because I was so afraid to let go because of how much they helped me. But the longer I try to stay in something that's just no longer a fit or aligned, like my soul really starts pushing up, and I'm make myself wrong for being there. I have to make them wrong for doing what they're doing versus just acknowledging that it's come to completion and it's time to evolve and find something different. And so with that, it's kind of like the start of my journey was like basically talk therapy, and then I felt like everything crashed and burned, and all the work that I did just got erased, and that led me trying to find something else because I was really desperate. Then I found through a friend recommendation at the time, a holistic counselor, and I worked with her for probably, I would say, 6 years, like almost every 2 weeks. And then she introduced me to the first aspect of energy healing. And that's when things started shifting. It was small, and I felt like it was still going to take forever, but there was actual forward momentum. But it wasn't until probably 6 years in on this journey of really, doing things in a way that I could slowly start stripping back those layers, that I kind of came head to head with my addiction and not being willing to see that before. And that was the piece where I finally had that space to look at how much shame I was holding on to, like just the traumas and the stories of my past, and really caught in the cycle of insanity of like binging and like constantly always planning the next move. And my main vice is food. I know some of you don't consider that a real addiction, but that's your choice to believe. Um, but for me, it's like I can do, basically turn anything into compulsion, because that's just the way I navigate to try to stop, numb the pain, or if I'm too numb to feel something, and constantly pivoting and trying to figure out the next move of when I can get like, the next fix, so to speak. So I kind of came to this place where I had created a really small bubble around me that I wasn't really willing to see how much it was devastating my life. And I didn't want anyone with addiction problems in it. I didn't want to see the trigger for what it is, and you do have stories from your past and like experiences that might validate these feelings. But at the end of the day, I just didn't want to be faced with my own issues, and I didn't know how to process it. So I really truly, to the 12-step program, really am grateful that I was guided there, and that the right people, the right sponsors, like the right support came in for me at that time. And it really gave me this platform of just fully dumping and looking at all the brokenness and all the shame and everything that had piled up for me. And I will say it probably took about 2 years even there. So when people talk about healing, we want the quick fix, we want the magic wand. We want to be able to be told that in 10 days time, everything's going to change for you. And I'm also a believer in miracles, so it can, but I also believe that, we really do need to validate these parts of our experience in order for them to shift. So the longer we ignore them, the bigger and bigger they're going to get, and which then they just become so insurmountable that we feel crippled and can often reach that rock bottom with them. So it's like when you try to run from that shame, anything you run from always is going to catch up with you, because you're not really acknowledging that empathy and the compassion that needs to come through. And here's the thing, there's no judgment, because it's your journey. And other people might tell you to get over it, or I can't believe you're still on about that. But you need to really honor with where you're at and what you're willing to do. And sometimes if you're like, I know I need to deal with this, but I just can't right now, it's like even having that choice and that awareness is really going to help you shift it, because it's kind of like, I'm not willing to do anything differently. So it's like in that embrace, it kind of also will allow that possibility to come through. So I'm not saying it's not going to be easy, because, there is a lot of pain that we hold on to and harbor, and resentment. The resentment keeps coming in underneath it all. But the freedom on the other side, like I honestly never believed that the peace of mind that people talked about was actually possible. And now that I'm living it mostly on a day-to-day basis, it's pretty phenomenal, just because we get to, answer the call of all of those pieces underneath. And that's also why I really love the Akashic Records and the angelic work that I do, because I found that it was like the quickest way of really witnessing the root of what was happening, and then bringing that love, that compassion, that acceptance for it to shift, to go. And some things have been longer in play. Some things we can shift instantly. It just depends where you're at and, how much is connected to it. And it's not a race to get to the finish line. It's just about that choice of acknowledgement that you just need that support here and now. So if you can find that embrace of compassion and empathy for yourself, understand that if you feel that you've been misunderstood by other people, that often you've had that same desire, and you haven't been seeing them for who they are, it can just get, we can just create so much. And it's just a beautiful piece to be able to just bring in that aspect of freedom for yourself and your soul. So be gentle with yourself, allow you just to stay in that space of curiosity, because the curiosity is really going to give you the platform to actually look at things in a different way rather than needing to attach the story and then kind of relive out those experiences. So I hope this makes sense. I love you. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you later. Bye.